So I just finished an awesome interview with Berk Wilson. Wanted to give you a quick summary of what I learned. So Berk is focused on multiplying disciples and churches and seeing consistent fourth generation at NC State University. And he's not having all the critical mass challenges that I'm seeing others face in urban settings, especially in the West. And I think that his model that the Spirit's given him for multiplying churches is interesting and worth looking at. So as we unpacked it, I learned that he's got a legacy church that's meeting on Sunday mornings. And out of that legacy church, they started some discipleship groups. Okay, and these discipleship groups are doing sort of yellow light studies where if you look at the 4 fields, they're doing a C2C type discovery set with people that they've shared the gospel with, okay? And they're entering the harvest with prayer and care, and they're doing C2C with people after they share 3 circles with them, okay? And then they're inviting one of these groups. Then the leaders who are all going to this church so this is generation 0, they will invite these folks to cross-pollinate at different meal times during the week. And so this could be a generally guys group, a generally girls group, and maybe this is a sports group of folks. And so they're inviting people into these groups and forming discipleship groups. And then these folks here will decide, hey, we want to gather this into a Generation 1 church. And they'll normally do that over a meal and invite the people to do that. And maybe in these groups, they're doing some commands of Christ and seeing folks come to faith. And sometimes they've got yellow lights and green lights together, but they're gathering them in here. Then this church is going to do the same thing. They're going to start multiple discipleship groups, generally guys only, girls only, and it's easier to gather that way. Or a family unit. They're seeing multiplication off of campus as well. And then 3 to 6 months down the road, they'll decide as a church that we're going to plant a new church. Okay, and now they've got a Generation 2 church. And then this church does the same thing. They start discipleship groups, and then we'll collapse them down into the next generation, and on it goes. And the pattern continues. So they're focused pretty heavily on the controllables, okay? And Berk uses a baseball diamond to describe the controllables. So getting on first base is really just offering prayer for someone. I'll just write prayer instead of drawing a prayer guy. So they're offering prayer, and they call that getting on first base. And he even uses this to coach his leaders here. Then second base is sharing the gospel. And they're generally using their story and 3 circles to do that. So I'll put their story there in field 2. And then they call third base is when someone is a green light. They say yes to Jesus. I want to follow. And then a home run is when they gather with them, usually in one of these discovery groups. Sometimes he calls them area churches, and they call these discovery groups. Now, another thing I learned that was really interesting is that generally these groups are 3 to 4 folks, all right, and the churches are 8 to 12 folks. Okay, so that was interesting to me that they're getting to that much critical mass. And the network sort of breathes with time as different students leave and come. But he's always casting vision to everyone. When you move, when you get a job somewhere, start a church. Don't join a church, start a church. And they already know how to do that. So in these churches, they're really heavily focused on getting those Acts 2 church functions in place. And they're doing that using 9 commands of Christ, and they're using the pattern of care, they call it, the 3/3 format for their meetings. Even with these discovery groups, they're using that with the yellow light folks who haven't followed Jesus yet, but they're interested in learning more. So yeah, really fascinating stuff. If you want to dive into the details of the interview, go ahead and watch it. And Berk gives his contact information at the end of the interview if you want to reach out to him.